Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's 2 p.m. at World Hosting Days in the political arena, hosted by ECO at the ECO booth in the ballroom S18 at World Hosting Days 2018. And this afternoon session, the first of this afternoon's two sessions, is about data retention. We titled it Retain the Tension with Data Retention. So it says that there's an ongoing process with data retention, and in fact it is. Lawmakers came up with data retention laws, but they seem to be invalidated by courts over and over again. Yet they pop up a couple of years later, and we're trying to talk about why this is, whether data retention is or should be the favorite tool of lawmakers for solving criminal and other issues on the internet. And we're trying to take our mobile crystal balls to see what the future of data retention, if any, might be. My name is Thomas Rickert. I'm Director Names and Numbers with ECO, the Internet Industry Association based in Germany with more than 1,000 members from more than 60 countries, so it's quite international today. And I have with me a great panel of very high caliber experts. So to my right I have Astrid Oosenbrug. She's been a member of the Dutch Parliament. She has a technical background, which is great for a politician to have. And she's quite experienced in the area. She's been working on that for years. We're looking forward to her views. Jimmy Schulz is a German politician, and he was in the German Parliament from 2009 to 2013, and he's now heavily campaigning in Bavaria to get back in fall when we have our elections. To my left is Klaus Landefeld. Klaus is one of the first generation internet entrepreneurs in Germany. He set up one or multiple ISPs, and for many, many years he is on ECO's board, and he's responsible for all infrastructure-related questions there, and he's been heavily involved in regulations such as data retention. To my far left is Peter Schaar. Peter is the former Federal Data Protection Officer for Germany, and he's now with the European Academy for Freedom of Information and Data Protection. So he also knows an awful lot about all these matters, and we're looking forward to an interesting discussion. So we are at one of the booths, as you might be able to hear from the background noise. So there are people running back and forth behind us, and behind the cameras in particular. But nonetheless, we would like to keep this as interactive as possible. So if you come by, please don't hesitate to stop by, raise your hand, make yourself heard, and we will include you in the discussion. So let me turn to my left first. Klaus, you've followed the data retention debate in Germany, at least from the very beginning. Can you give us like a 2 or 3 minute overview of what the lawmakers tried to achieve, how they wanted to do it technically, and then what ECO's position on that was from the beginning?
The current attempt at data retention is pretty much focused on Germany right now. The original proposal for data retention, which was initiated in 2004 by a group of EU member countries, was struck down, and what we now term data retention 2.0 was a more or less exclusively German attempt to reinstate that, done in 2015. It was actually done after, or let's say in conjunction with the ECJ saying no, it's not possible to do it at all anymore. The legislation should not be there, and there was even another ruling in December 2016, basically saying data retention without limits for everyone is not constitutional in Europe. Nonetheless, we have that law in Germany. It became law the 1st of January this year. Data retention is supposed to happen again from the 1st of July, basically. So providers are supposed to store data for a very limited amount of data, I have to say. It's just for telephony, SMS. Email is not part of it, but also internet access data. There's currently a number of lawsuits going on against it in front of the Constitutional Court. Law enforcement is under the impression they need it as a tool to be able to find anything if there is, for example, they use terrorist attacks obviously nowadays as the main reasoning. So if there's a terrorist attack happening, they want to find out who the guys were communicating with, how the network looks like. This is all about communication data, not the content, but actually surrounding data, where who's talking to whom, when, from which location. This is what this is about, and they believe they need this in order to find any access to these groups of people.
Thanks very much, Klaus. Let me move to Peter. From a data protection point, there's always the question of proportionality and how we weigh different fundamental rights. So if you look at the needs of law enforcement and the likes, and if you look at data retention, is there a mismatch?
Yes, of course. From my impression, yes. First, I have to say that security is a big issue, but it is not a fundamental right. It's the first. It's a mistake to say security is seen as a fundamental right. We need security, yes, but on the other hand, we have to deal with the effects of specific instruments on fundamental rights, fundamental right to privacy, Article 7 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union, and Article 8, data protection. And my problem, or the problem of the data protection community with this means, is that the data that has to be collected goes far beyond some persons who have committed crimes or who plan to commit crimes. They are not suspects. All our data, all data of those persons who are communicating have to be stored for a period of time without no concrete reason. This is the problem. And therefore, the first German data retention act was challenged before the German Constitutional Court. The court said it was unproportional and annulled this legislation. Then, for several years in Germany, there was no obligation to store data for these purposes. A few years later, the European Court of Justice made a very similar judgment to the directive, the European Directive on Data Retention, saying that this goes far beyond those means that are really needed for law enforcement and prevention of crime. And therefore, there is no European legal basis anymore for data retention. It was very interesting for me to follow the German discussion on reintroduction of data retention a few years ago. The real starting point was in January 2015. You remember that these were January 2015 was the month of the first Paris attacks on Charlie Hebdo. And German government officials like Sigmar Gabriel, but also Christ Democrats like de Maizière, the Minister of Interior, said, now this is the proof we need data retention. But they were not aware that France never abolished data retention. They have had all the time data retention. A longer period than in Germany or in other member states, 1 year of data retention. And this means didn't help to prevent the attacks, and it didn't really help to solve the cases. So this was a really bad argument, but German politicians, most German, not all of them, most German members of parliament followed this argumentation, and they reintroduced a kind of data retention light. I would say it is not as far-reaching as the first version, but Nevertheless, it's data retention. Providers are obliged to store data they don't need themselves for their business purposes. That's the issue, and therefore I hope that this new Data Retention Act will be annulled again.
Thanks very much for this passionate statement. You were talking about German politicians that try to get data retention done. Now, Jimmy, you have been unencumbered with parliamentary duties in 2015, although that might change soon. But having looked at that from a distance, was there a feeling of discomfort?
Yes, of course, because I've been fighting against data retentions and its predecessors the last 25 years, I think. And I'm now one of a couple of former parliamentarians, politicians, having brought data retention in Germany, the actual law, in front of the constitutional court. And I'm fighting there against it because I'm not in parliament right now, so I can't do it there. Of course, this is a completely ridiculous law, as you all both mentioned already. It is most probably against the Constitution, and I'm confident that we will win that in front of the Constitutional Court. Second, it's technical ridiculous because, international terrorism and international crime, organized crime, are well able to avoid that their data is collected. As we all know here in this area, we could do that too, to keep our data mostly private. So what happens if you collect all the data of innocent people, which is against the Constitution because they haven't done anything, is that you just get, a 14-year-old downloading some software. You have a speeding ticket, a digital speeding ticket, that's it. But you won't get the terrorists and organized crime because they can avoid that, as we all can do because there are technical means. And in the third place, it's very hard that the ISPs, the internet providers, the internet business have to pay for the whole thing. And ECO, as far as I remember, calculated €500 million, which will cost data retention to implement in Germany.
Thanks very much. Jimmy, Astrid, you've been part of the discussion, at least for a couple of years, in the Netherlands. Was there as passionate debate as we hear today here?
Well, the passion, I want to say, maybe we should start a fight, and I say, I'm all for it, but I'm not either, so. But there was a big discussion also to the people who really, I agree with you, people who wanted to be safe. And a lot of politicians said, well, we need it, so the police can do their job, and we're all safe. But it's not true. Because you see it happening in England now. They say, well, if we had the data, you did have the data, but you didn't use it. So stop it. Stop saying we need more data and we need it longer, because it's just not true. And the other thing is, politicians also think, or mostly the government always think that terrorists are very stupid. And they, I'm just going to leave a trail of all my data and so they can find me. No. So you're going to follow innocent people, 70 million in the Netherlands, to try to catch some guys who are much smarter than the systems are. So no data retention, but we had the same discussion in the Netherlands. After the EU court says no more data retention, then they came back and said, well, they said not as long, but maybe we can do 6 months, or no, well, maybe we can do 3 months. So we had this debate over and over again, but it's not about why are you collecting all this data. It's just the only thing they say is we need it, but they can't explain to me why. Show me that you really need it. Show me that you really got a person person using this data from 6 years ago, because you can prove it to me. So
Just a little follow-up question. I mean, you've certainly, as well as Jimmy, possibly talked to colleagues from other political parties. Do you have any insight as to what the motivation is? Is it just the easiest way to be seen to be doing something? I mean, usually politicians have a tendency to sacrifice civil liberties whenever there's a crisis, but at the same time they might be looking at trying effective means when they're sacrificing civil liberties. But this, you know, from everything we've heard, seems to be a bad option to move forward, because we, you know, the effectiveness or the level that it helps, or positive examples where it show its efficiency are not there.
yeah, but you never want to hear as a politician that you were the one who said no to a law, and then this guy blew up some building, and maybe that didn't happen if they could use that law that you were against. So it's a bit, politicians are also a bit scared to say no, because if something happens, it's on your head. That's what I noticed in the Dutch court, because I was against the law. I said, I'm against it. And people said, you're very naive. And I said, okay, whatever, I'm naive. It's okay, but I don't want to vote for a law that's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Thanks very much. Jimmy?
It's the easy way out for politicians. Well, first of all, most politicians don't even understand how a law like that will ever work, what it does, and how it technically works. And they don't care because they don't understand, so we ignore how to learn how it would work. But that's just one point. It's the easy way out, just as you said. If something happens, we've done everything we could. But now we have to do even more surveillance. And then we can protect you even more, and even better, and then you're even more secure. There is no 100% security, even if you have 100% surveillance. And we have learned that in Germany because we had 2 states in the last century which have surveyed their citizens in the most perfect way. And even then, there was crime, there was terrorism, there was violence.
Thanks very much. Klaus, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, there's actually 2 things I want to add. One is, obviously, data retention is about trying to solve crime. It's not about preventing crime. I mean, typically, the argument is we can prevent something, but you can not prevent anything with data retention. The areas where this would help police most, to be clear about this, is areas where they're prevented from using it. They're not allowed to use it because of the impact this has on privacy of people and everything. It can only be used for very serious crime, and these are areas where there's other data, other means to solve it. So it doesn't, and typically they're very quick about it. So the areas where data prevention will help is if you have data for very long and with a very low impact level, but you cannot use it for that because the rights of citizens would be too much infringed upon by doing that. So that is a big problem. But the way it is done in Germany right now, the new law we have actually has to take care of all the provisions the Constitutional Court added in abolishing the first version, which means that the storage of data, the retention period, the way to access it, everything is so complicated, so expensive, and the ways that it can be used at all is completely ridiculous. In most cases, it even means that non-data retention data stored at providers anyway is there for a longer period of time than the data actually stored in these very complex systems under the new data retention law. It's absolutely nonsensical to store this data at all. It goes for telephony data, for example. And other types of data, yes, that needs to be in the system, need to be in the data retention system. Now, providers typically don't store it at all, but the way it is done means that it cannot really be used. For example, we do address translation nowadays because we are run out of V4 address space, and this translation is not part of the storage process, meaning that when police comes and asks you for the data, all you can tell them is, well, sorry, we cannot really tell you who the user was behind that. So still we have to store it. It makes no sense at all. But this is let's say what is left after taking care of all the provisions being put in the law, or being put in by abolishing the first version of data retention. So the way it is done right now is more or less that, well, we want to have it because we always ask for it. Now, but there's also some critical problems, like an extension of data retention was already called for before it was even the law was even effective. So in fall of last year, it was already asked for an extension of the storage period back to 6 months again. It was asked for adding emails again to the data retention. It was asked for storing OTT services. Even before the law was even in effect, the Christian Democrats asked for it. The interior ministers of the Christian Democrats asked for that in their collective statement in, I think it was October, November or something like that. So that is really the problem. It's kind of like doing it piecemeal, one after the other. First we have data retention again, then we add a bit here and a bit there, and when there's the next problem, then we add whatever, a bit of storage period here and there. So it's kind of like trying to reintroduce it in small steps because the reasoning behind it is once it passed, if it's such a small impact, then it might pass the Constitutional Court and it might actually be upheld, and then if we add just a little bit, then it's not going to be abolished again, and things like that. That's the reasoning behind it. And that is one of the biggest problems. That's why ECHO, for example, is supporting providers like SpaceNet and actually fighting it in front of not just the Constitutional Court, but also in the administrative courts, right? Because that obviously impacts you as carriers, as providers as well, and the cost is just tremendous because the technical systems are so complex. You have to store it in Germany, you have to store it in a separate system. It cannot be part of your classical storage system. It needs to be encrypted. The encryption keys needs to change every day and things like that. So it's a completely ridiculous way to do it. You cannot even extract data easily from it. I don't know. The system is, it's just there, so we have it, even so it makes no sense.
Thanks, Klaus. Peter, to be frank, I think I initiated these requirements because a statement before the Constitutional Court in the first case against data retention, I said that there are no safeguards, and I proposed some safeguards, and I thought that these safeguards are so strong, it never would make sense to reintroduce data retention, but they copied the ruling of the Constitutional Court into the new legislation, and now you have to realize my proposal. Sorry, Klaus. But nevertheless, I would say the main issue, the main problem is that data retention isn't an effective means in the fight against serious crime and terrorism. This is the first sentence we have to remember, and we have to repeat. And the European Court of Justice asked the governments, all the governments, the 28 governments and the Commission, to provide the court with some evidence that it is necessary, and they failed completely. And there's a second thing, that this is a report of the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board. You know that there was a secret data retention regime in the United States starting in the late 2001, or perhaps 2002, until 2013 when it became public. And the Privacy and Civil Liberty Oversight Board that was established under the Obama administration looked into every case. The police, FBI, Secret Service provided to that. And at the end, it was a judgment by this Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board. There was no single case in the United States, in these immense data retention databases, it prevented a terrorist attack, or it helped to sentence a person who was involved in these activities. So, at the end, I would say it's ineffective, and therefore it's not appropriate. So I would say the first requirement for such obligations is that there must be a proof that it works, that's effective, and this doesn't work.
Thanks very much, Peter. Let's do a last round of concluding remarks to maybe give this a little bit more positive or constructive spin. I think we argue to agree that data retention might be a flawed system, although it's coming back over and over again. But what do you think is an effective measure to be taken? What do you think effective law enforcement work should be based on, rather than data retention? Astrid, would you like to take a first crack at this?
Well, what I always said is be sure you have the right people, you have good people, you have a good system, and you be transparent about it. Because you need some data to prove something, but you also have to be transparent about it. And stop saying that you can make everybody 100% safe, because that's never gonna happen. So we keep building things up, but be honest. Maybe that's what I try to say as a positive thing. Be honest and be transparent about it. That's positive thing, I think.
Thanks, Astrid. Jimmy?
First thing, we all have to accept there is never going to be a 100% safe world. Bad guys will do bad things, whatever we make. There's no chance that we can have a completely safe world. And we do have to accept that. Life is dangerous and might end with death. So if we've all accepted that fact, we can say, okay, we want, of course, a secure world. Yes, we want that, but not by all means. So I don't have a perfect solution for a problem that can never be solved. So, but maybe, yes, of course, there are helpful things. Police presence, better educated, better prepared, better equipped. Yes, this helps to a certain extent. Well, fight against the reasons for terrorism and the regions where terrorism comes from. One thing, we will never get rid of it. We have terrorism reasons in Germany too, 20, 30 years ago. We will never get rid of it, but we can say, okay, we will try to offer a political system where less people have a reason to become terrorists. But we will never get rid of terrorism and criminals.
Thanks, Jimmy. Klaus?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean,
Maybe you can tackle it both from the preventative side as well as from the investigative side after something happens.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, as carriers, we're always supposed to help the police, and we're doing that on a regular basis, legal interception, everything. I think police needs to learn to work with data which is there, which is stored anyway, and they don't do that right now. They want to have some formal approach to do it with, which kind of like looks almost historical, like the old calling lists or the connection lists they get from a telephone call. And this is just not how this works anymore. And other things which are, if they would be more quick about it, and I think that is the biggest problem. It takes forever for investigations to actually arrive at the carrier side. If they would hit the carrier within a week maybe, then a lot of data would already be there because it's stored for technical purposes, for abuse, fraud management, whatever, because it's needed internally to check that your systems are working and anything. So if the actual freeze request, for example, would hit the carrier within a couple of days, a lot of data, even data which would never be accepted to be stored under the data retention regime, would still be available and could be used for law enforcement. So really the problem is be quick about it and learn to live with it if the data is no longer there. Historically, for hundreds of years, there were methods to talk with people to find out what was going on and why is it different in the digital world? Why the question which is asked here is that we accept the infringement of our rights to an extent which we would never accept in the analog world if you asked whatever a bar at the corner should tell you for every day for the last 6 months who was there. We would never accept that. But in the digital world, we say, oh yeah, we want this. This should be done under a data retention regime. So this is just that police will have to learn that in the digital world, it's just the same rules than in the analog world, and the time frames and everything. If people still remember, they remember, and the same goes for if data is still there. Data is still there. They have to work on in the investigative ways with data which is there. If it's no longer there, it's done. That's it. But police work was always that way.
Thanks very much. Peter.
Well, I think we have to look back to the recent cases of terrorist attacks in Germany and in Europe. And in these cases, the persons who committed the crimes were on the screen of the secret services and the police. But our authorities did not assess that, or they failed to identify the real threat coming from these persons. This is the main problem. I would say we need more targeted approaches. There is a lot of money and time and workforce invested in untargeted collection of data, and to look after some patterns you don't know how they are, what they are. It's very expensive. It's very untargeted. It's very ineffective. If we invest more in these targeted approaches, like quick freeze, data preservation, not data retention. If we invest in education of the policemen to deal with digital data, that would help much more than increasing the high stake further to find a needle you don't know whether there is one and how it looks like.
Thanks very much, Peter.
Let me add one
Okay, one sentence.
because what Peter just said, that would be the only way compatible with the December ruling of the court, which basically stated that you cannot do a blanket retention, but you can only do retention for a specific group of people. So if you already know who you look at, if you have a certain group of people which you think you should investigate or you need to store data, that would be okay, but you cannot do it as a blanket retention. So this would be the only way compatible with the current legal situation.
Thanks very much. Thanks to this panel. Let me try to take stock. So I think we all agree that data retention is not the best of all ideas, that the laws as we know them are primarily unconstitutional, and that they don't really help because the way they've now been limited in their efficiency in order to potentially be constitutional leads to a situation where the data that is retained is less data than ISPs and other companies involved might need to store anyway. Also, we haven't seen any evidence of data retention being an effective measure to preventing crime from happening or to investigate cases quicker. So I guess our plea is to equip law enforcement with training and technical means to be more efficient with what is already there, and then to work on that basis. And ultimately, I think it's for all of us to encourage the politicians that we elect to be brave and actually not be afraid of letting go of a tool that has proven to be inefficient just because they're afraid that it might push back on them. So I would like to thank all of you, Astrid Oosenbrug, Jimmy Schulz, Klaus Landefeld, Peter Schaar for this engaged and interesting discussion. My name is Thomas Rickert, and I'm going to see you back at 4 p.m. For the next session on critical infrastructure and are we doing enough to protect it. Thank you.